When we use the word e-commerce, it's a little bit like saying sales in my mind, right? How do you affect sales? It's such a broad topic. Salesperson, marketing, messaging, product, graphic design, blah, blah, blah. You can go into a bazillion things. E-commerce is such a broad thing now, regardless of whether or not you've got an established brand or established e-com business or a startup business. Being part of that process at the beginning of making content really helps us as marketers because we can tap into that remarketing power, which is way more powerful than...
Hey everyone, welcome to the Cashflo Kings Podcast, where we help e-commerce CEOs and executives make more money, save more money, and maximize their profits. Today, we're here with Andy Seeley, and we're talking about practical strategies for e-commerce growth. Welcome, Andy.
How's it going? Nice to see you.
Fantastic. We're excited to have you on the show. We're going to talk about all kinds of things, e-commerce and e-commerce growth, obviously. We'll get into some AI topics as well. But before we do that, let me give a little bit more background about you. Andy Seeley is the CEO and co-founder of Creatively Disruptive and Ashworth Strategy, two leading agencies specializing in marketing solutions, e-commerce brands, and service businesses. He's a pioneer in high conversion strategies and automation and the creator of CAI, an AI-powered CRM that transforms lead management and business growth, which I'm sure we're going to get into here in a minute. Anything else you want to say about yourself, Andy?
No, that's about it. And a bit of a funny talker, live in the United States, but not from the United States, as you could probably imagine.
Well, I'll make fun of you. Don't worry about it. We'll make sure we bring that out. Well, let's move on. Tell us about Creatively Disruptive. What do you do? What makes you different? And how do you serve the e-commerce industry to help them grow?
Yeah. So Creatively Disruptive is the parent company. Ashworth Strategy is our Ecomm brand. So it's probably more of an Ashworth Strategy conversation. The Ashworth Strategy has been serving e-commerce for probably about 7 years. Creatively Disruptive itself was serving e-commerce for a number of years, and we merged and acquired Ashworth Strategy last year to bolster. A lot of it was about upping the quality of our staff when it came to the e-commerce space. Ashworth had a lot of good stuff going on. They also developed a couple of really good systems that were helpful to startups.
So let's talk about e-commerce for a second here. Let's talk about the startup. What would you recommend that a e-commerce startup do today to be more successful, to put the numbers in their favor? What are those strategies you would tell a client that's starting a new e-commerce business?
One, be very clear on the product. There's a lot of people that come to e-commerce and they know they just want to be in e-commerce, but they don't even have a product. They don't really know what the product is. You see the drop shippers and so forth, which I'm nothing against a drop shipper. So I would say getting back to it is making sure that you've got a product that is good, because, if you want some longevity and you actually want to make some serious money, you've got to have something that people will talk about. That's the reputation stuff, which is your stuff, right? If you've got a bad reputation, nothing lasts online. It gets out there pretty quickly that, hey, no, this is a scam or this is crap or whatever it is. Reputation and social, presence is really, really important. You have a new product and it's really, really great, but there's no social presence out there. I do recommend that anybody, before they even launch their product, that they build up their social presence, that they talk about the product. Maybe it's not even being sold. You make it exciting. You say, it's coming in a couple of months, and you get people joining your Facebook page and your TikTok and your Instagram page, and you start building up your email list before you've even sold it. One of our most successful startups was a dentist out of New York City, and she wanted to have a different type of breath freshener. It's a little bit expensive. It was $19 for this breath, but it was really tasty and really smelled beautiful, but it was really nice to taste in the mouth. It wasn't like harsh or anything. Right. And it was dentist approved because she was a dentist, right? She spent a year before she launched her product building her email list, building her presence, telling the story about it, really building up a little bit of energy. So the day that she actually launched to sales, like decent sales. So making sure you've got that online presence, especially from a social standpoint, I would say is important. And then again, actually doing some testing, trying the market and seeing what the market responds to with your product. But having all those things, a good product, a social presence, maybe before you've even launched it, right? Making sure it's good, making sure you got a social presence, testing the market so you don't waste money. Because you could blow $100,000 and have nothing. And oftentimes, if you're a startup, that's the end of the startup. Anybody that's out there, I highly recommend that you, one, talk to a lot of agencies and make sure that they have your best interest at heart and you really feel it. That you really know it, and that two, that there's an element of testing before you launch. It's not just, okay, well, here's ads, here's $5,000 in ad spend a month, and here's just go, let's see what happens. No, there's a real process to success. And then also the final thing is actually have some money to invest.
But I would add, not just ask and talk to the agency, but have them prove it. What case studies, what results can they share that you can relate to? Because if they haven't done what you need doing and they can prove that they've done it, then words are cheap. Okay, let's move on to something else. Now, this is going to be tough. But on average, I know you work with a lot of different types of brands and industries and products, but on average, what are you seeing are the channels with the highest ROI right now for customer acquisition?
Dependent on the product. Like if it's service-based, obviously Google is probably still a little bit of a king, although I must admit Meta is still really strong. So Meta is great, obviously, for introducing people to something they haven't seen or aren't thinking about. And it still is very good at finding out psychographics, meaning what people are thinking about and kind of matching that with your product. TikTok, we see some really good stuff happening with it, but more from a branding standpoint. But depending on the product, it can be really powerful. I mean, I know of a brand. It's not actually a client of ours, but it's a friend of mine was working with that brand, and it's Pop Rockets. The old, you put them in your mouth and they, the old candy kind of stuff. They're doing phenomenally well on TikTok. So it kind of really depends on what your product is a little bit. It depends on what your brand is. If you've got a product that needs some explanation, I think Meta is a really good place to be, because you need to really kind of go through it and really kind of explore it. And there's a lot of options and flexibility with the Meta, suite of things that we can do to kind of introduce a new thing to somebody. Google's not a great place to go to introduce a new thing and educate them on it. Can you? Yeah, but it's much harder. Google is the place where someone's searching for something. I see most of our really successful clients, they've got a successful Amazon business going, and they understand that the Google efforts that they're doing with us does directly affect their Amazon business, right? So, understanding how the different platforms can interact with each other, right? So TikTok's really good branding and kind of exposure. Meta, very good at education and showing and explaining and going through and kind of following somebody, and with the retargeting that you can do on Facebook and Instagram to actually follow someone around and really give them some information to really get them up to speed get ready for the purchase. And then obviously Google for the person that's actively seeking it. And they all work together. I don't know of any companies actually that do well just focusing on one platform. They're leaving money on the table when they do that.
Marketing is an ecosystem, and you've got to realize that people are engaging with different channels and platforms and technologies at different points in the funnel, at different times in the day, and looking for different kinds of information. And if you're only doing Google PPC ads, no presence in Meta and no presence in TikTok or whatever other platform, YouTube, et cetera, then they don't have the brand awareness. You haven't built the credibility, and you may not get the click. If you did get the click, you may not get the conversion because you don't have that brand awareness, that credibility and authority that would be built up to these other channels. It is an ecosystem. And I see the same mistake being made all the time, where people are all in on one channel and they have no presence on 3 or 4 other channels that are going to facilitate that awareness, that authority, that credibility, and leverage the type of medium, for example, video versus text versus reels. Exactly. Versus shorts, versus long form videos, versus landing pages, right? So you've got to have the entire ecosystem managed.
So if I'm honest, DJ, I didn't answer your question. If you notice, you're like, which platform is the one to go?
You just kind of dance around it, don't you, Andy?
I know. Because the reality is there's no singular platform that you should be doing. I think that would be a mistake. I don't know a product that one platform is the only one that you should do. There might be one that's better than others. And that's why I say, depending on the product, there might be a platform that's better, but that platform is going to suffer when it's not propped up by the other platforms.
Yeah, no, I agree. You've got to have multiple platforms. Back in the agency days, I started out with doing just direct mail, read an article, a research paper on how direct mail works better when you combine it with TV and radio, electronic. So that's how I got into TV and radio. And my clients had tremendous success because I was leveraging those multiple touch points and the reach and the frequency combined with the direct mail. So when the direct mail hit the home, they'd already heard of this brand multiple times on TV and or radio. And now they took notice because now they had credibility. because as seen in TV, as heard on the radio, carries a lot of weight because people believe that if you're in these other mediums, you must be successful because only successful companies can afford to be on TV and radio.
And that comes into what you do with the reputation management. The credibility comes from having 400 people saying that you're great.
Right.
Right. And sometimes the credibility comes in that you have 5 or 6 that say that you're not. Right. If you've got 400 and there's 0 people saying bad things about you, people say, that's not going to happen. Right? It's good to have a little bit of crazies in there, saying bad things about you because, you look at the 400, the crazies makes you go, okay, well, these must be legit because you've got some bad reviews.
That's right.
I've got a 4.9 star rating out of 5. That's really good. I'm looking at that and going, okay, I want to go there. I make that decision when it comes to Amazon purchases. I look at Trustpilot when I'm doing service businesses, looking to work with somebody. When it comes to Google, obviously purchasing products, getting some feedback as to whether or not it's a good product, that reputation and credibility comes through.
Well, that's why
with that
little pitch for the book, but that's why we wrote the book because there's an actual psychological science behind reviews, star ratings, and reputation management. And we figured, the only way to tell this story fully is to write a book. So we literally wrote a book with 91 full color illustrations, graphics, charts, original research, secondary research, because it is a complex subject to really fully understand how the psychological impact of reputation management, ratings, and reviews work, when they work, how they work, in combination, sequence, etc. So hence the book. Okay, another question. So how should an e-commerce brand leverage e-commerce right now to grow their business?
So again, if you're looking at a startup, I think Meta and Meta ads are going to be really, really important because of its ability to introduce people to new products. Google's not the greatest platform for that. Let's say you got a product and it's in a store, utilizing Facebook to help educate a large group of people about the product that you have and to expose yourself to a lot of people based on what the Meta platform knows people are interested in is a way of marketing, I guess, a way of selling or something that businesses have never had in the history of humanity. Mm-hmm. That we can go, okay, I want to sell stuff to an Andy and DJ. Facebook then goes, okay, Andy and DJ have these interests. We're going to put these products in front of Andy and DJ because they're interested in it, right? I try not to get too drilled down because it doesn't become evergreen because the things change so often that I don't like going into the technical stuff. But I would say from an e-com standpoint, if you have a product, let's say we have a lot of clients that have boutiques that come to us and they're doing maybe $40,000, $50,000 a month from their boutique. And then they come to us to move into eComm. And what they find with that is that they are able to leverage eComm to help them lower their cost of goods because they can leverage mass purchases. They can clear out product that maybe they wouldn't be able to clear out in their brick and mortar. E-commerce can do just so many different things done right. The critical part of it all, DJ, is knowing what your product is, knowing who your audience is, and knowing what you want to accomplish and having a plan with it. When we use the word e-commerce, it's a little bit like saying sales in my mind, right? How do you affect sales? It's such a broad topic, right? Salesperson, marketing, messaging, product, graphic design, blah, blah, blah. You can go into a bazillion things. E-commerce is such a broad thing now. I mean, you're looking at, you could say that part of your e-commerce strategy should be having a good Amazon store, right? Part of your e-com strategy should be having a well-run campaign on Meta, with great retargeting. And, we spend most of our money on remarketing nowadays, right? That's why I say, please, if you're out there, regardless of whether or not you've got an established brand or established e-com business or a startup business, being part of that process at the beginning of making content really helps us as marketers because we can tap into that remarketing power, which is way more powerful than the top of funnel. The old adage was that if you're just looking at top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, you spend $1 in the top of funnel and you get 50 cents back. And if all you do is spend your time in the top of funnel, you'll basically go bust. Then the idea is that top of funnel exposes somebody and they get into the middle of funnel and that's more of an education phase, right? And you spend $1 there and you might get $2 back, right? But then the bottom of funnel, you spend $1 and you might get $10 back. But the bottom of funnel is not education. It's not exposure. It's time to buy, right? And there is that process that you got to take people through multiple different channels. And part of the strategy is not just clicks and ads. It should be content that is engaging, that people want to learn and look into, because that makes that top of funnel much more cost effective. Because basically what ends up happening, and we're seeing this working, especially in the last year, which I was talking about, is that content is taking the place of the top of funnel ad spend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So you put that great content out there, people engage with it, and then we can get the stats from that and re-engage with those people that engage with your content at a much lower cost.
Mm-hmm.
And then get you into that ecosystem to get you to profitability a lot quicker.
So true.
Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's more of a less technical, but technical answer.
That's the role of content, right? Is get those people into the funnel organically at a very, very low cost. Obviously, you have to create content. That takes a little bit of money and time, and that's a cost. But if you can create that engagement and then retarget from there, then you can bring them to the bottom of the funnel. Okay, last question, Andy. This is our legendary $1 million question.
Oh, geez.
What is the one thing that an e-commerce store can do today to get the biggest impact?
I would say today, really look at your content development strategy. We see massive improvement with MER, media efficiency rate, or ROAS, or whatever you want to call it, however you want to, measure it. So the amount of dollars that you spend, the amount of dollars that you get back, we see a massive increase in return on that dollar that you spend with content being put out regularly, right? So, if somebody gets one thing from this discussion that we've had today, DJ, I would say invest in a tripod and make sure you've got a camera of quality. It doesn't need to be a nice DSLR. It can be your iPhone 16, right? It's a quality camera on that thing. Get good quality sound. Right. So go to Best Buy. There's a really cool lapel mic that you can get. It's really high quality. It costs, it's like $60-$70, but you plug into it and, the sound is really good. Sound is more important than the quality of the video. Right.
Agreed.
You set that up and it can be like this. I mean, it's not like we're spending $1 bazillion on the quality of this. I mean, maybe you are, I'm not. You might be doing a whole bunch of things to make me look way better than what I am. I'm not. Invest in it. Make sure it's consistent. And make sure it's thought out, and you will get 3, 4, 5 times what you're currently doing with the same dollar spend without that content.
Yeah. Especially when your content's not an ad, but it's authentic, it's transparent, it's you, it's real. People can relate to you. If they can relate to you, they can trust you. You can build up some semblance of a rapport, and being visible, getting out from behind your brand and be visible. Be the face of the brand, be the voice of the brand, create a podcast, be a guest on podcasts, create videos, how-tos, instructionals, what to look for, buyer's guides using videos with you on camera. And you don't have to be a celebrity. You just have to be authentic and real so people can relate to you and trust you. Well, the reality is that sales, marketing, branding, PR is all storytelling. If you don't have a good story behind your brand and your product, features and benefits aren't going to sell it. It's the story. Why? Because most competitors have the same or relatively same features and benefits. But if you have a great story that people can relate to and connect with, and especially if it's hitting emotional hot buttons, that's where you can command a higher price. You get a higher close rate. You get more repeat customers because people buy stories. Simon Sinek, right? The why. What's the why behind your brand? Well, we've spent a lot of time today, Andy, and it's been great. How can people get a hold of you? How can people follow you? How can people learn more about what you're doing?
The best way to reach out to us if you're interested in finding out some more information, we've got a really good team. They're not high pressure. It's truly about thinking about you as a business owner, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. We want to be a solution for you. We'll hold your hand through the whole process and give you direction, even if you decide not to do business with us. But the best way to reach out to us would be through Ashworth Strategy. So it's ashworthstrategy.com. So not strategies, strategy.com. You can reach us out through there, or Ashworth Strategy on Instagram is the way to reach out to us.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's the gamut. Well, having been a serial entrepreneur since I was 20 years old, I still wake up at 3 a.m. I never got out of that habit. Well, have an amazing day, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.